Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review, and in this video I'm going to review Trials and Tribulations by JH1.FS3. This is the second full-length album by the duo of Friedrich of Miles and JH1.FS3. I discovered this album from DAIS Records, which is a label I am familiar with, and I think it does a great job when it comes to some underground releases like this one, for example. And what made me excited about this album is that I am aware of Friedrich of Miles' work, because he's mostly known as Smelly, whose input in noise, power electronics and dark ambient music makes her one of the most important female figures in the underground scene of this decade, in my opinion, getting even to the levels of artists like Pharmacon. I wasn't aware about any of the works from JH1, but that obviously didn't hold me back from listening to this album, whose teaser track Pipe Talk really hyped me for this release. And also, when it comes to DAIS Records, I knew that this album was going to be well produced, which is mostly the case with anything this label puts out. In this album, what we do have does not have anything to do with power electronics or aggressive harsh noise music. Instead, Friedrich's direction in this album does not have the menacing and horrifying aggression we're usually used to from her works as Smelly. Even though her last album was mostly spoken word and poetry, it didn't have that many aggressive moments, but it's the same with this one. Whenever Friedrich comes to the vocal department, it serves as spoken word, as poetry, which is the same thing with JH1, with the inclusion of his vocals in some of the tracks, which can be combined together in different time stamps, giving it the experimental fashion. The best way to describe this album is the one way they explain the album themselves, which is cinema to the ear. This album is cinematic in its entirety. It's exactly what it says, and it delivers it in a good fashion. It has elements of dark ambient, industrial and drone music, all of them combined with so many different sounds put together in some different occasions, just creating lots of different images. Of course, all those images are presented in a messy way where it makes it for a huge and vast sound collage, and also an album that could be the category of musique concrète, especially considering how much emphasis there is on field recordings. This cinematic experience makes it one of the most unique and most intriguing albums to be found in the underground scene today. All of those sounds obviously make for a dark mood. If it tries with this cinematic approach to give you an idea of what the movie would be about, it would obviously be a horror movie, but not in the way where it would have lots of jump scares or gore. It would make it for a psychological thriller or a demented film. The issue though with this idea is how much can you stretch it? Because it's nice while it lasts with the first songs, but after a while it started losing its touch. And to be more specific, let's go about the tracks individually. The album starts strong with tracks like Far From Spring. It has a looped kick, creates a haunting and unsettling atmosphere with this weird sort of horn sounds at the beginning. There is a nice progression and build up to it, and the music concrete segments out of the second half of the song contains sounds like door creaks combined with some white noise. It reminds me of something out of Homotopy to Mary by Nerds with Wound, but obviously this album is not that direct. It tries to go into a lot of different passages within a very short period of time, and like I said in the beginning, this works. Second highlight on the album is Every Little Detail, the second track. It has a spoken word passage from Friedrich of Miles. It has a creepy sound and percussive recordings full of effects. Elements of abstract glitchy noise make their appearance through the second half of the song, and as it goes, at the second half it gets really chaotic. It's unsettling and horrifying. It definitely helps with the whole concept they try to create with this album, and it's up to par with everything Friedrich of Miles has done up until this point with Smelly. This could easily be a song out of her last album, especially if you consider how well textured and how well produced it is. Aleppo in Headlines is another cinematic ambient song. It's another instrumental moment of the album that keeps the same aesthetic aesthetic with the previous two songs. It progresses with lots of different sounds coming into the mix, from ambient scenes to multiple noise passages. The Chaos of Illusions is another song with some looped synths, creating a dark atmosphere. At the second half there is a bit of a spoken word passage from Friedrich and JH1.FS3 this time, repeating the same sentences, but there is a bit of a delay, enhancing the experimental and creepy aesthetic of the album. The progression in this song is not that exciting or that direct, although lots of different sounds come and go into the mix, but it keeps the same atmosphere and feel with the rest of the album so far. The fifth song is an interlude of 45 seconds with some weird and abstract sounds that come from field recordings and some weird noise passages. It's a nice middle point of the album, and I would actually say that is one of those tracks that works the best on the context of the album and in its attempt to create a cinematic experience. At the second half though is where the album kind of loses this character. It feels like it's getting a bit more melodic and giving less of focus and attention to all those elements that make this album strong to begin with. Either that or the album doesn't have that much power to stretch the idea even further and make its ideas get more stand out. The Earth Sticks to My Feet So I Won't Abandon It is the first kind of underwhelming moment to the album. It has a basic beat which is weirdly low into the mix, and it has sounds and scenes without that much of a cohesion or a standout moment, and also is a short track that feels that it's just finished without even starting to show its true potential. At the bottom of the night is the most different song out of the album so far. The synths feel to have more of like a euphoric feel to them. Even the singing from Friedrich is actually kind of sweet, and it draws you closer to the song rather than away and demented from it. It's not one of the strongest points of the album, but it's certainly the most unique one. The teaser song Pipe Talk is actually one of my highlights of the album, but actually into the context of the album I don't feel that it works really well at the track listing. In my opinion, this song feels only like a highlight middle ground out of the underwhelming side of the second half, and if it was at the beginning, which was way more messy and eccentric, then I think it would make much more sense. But still, for what it is, I think it captures perfectly the whole cinematic feel the album tries to present, with a combination of a great video clip as well, which is a collage of multiple pictures and photographs that are random to each other, but you still feel like there is a big connection in between them. You can't tell why, but this is just the feel of it, and it's the same with this album. You wouldn't expect all those sounds to just blend together in one album or in one song, but they actually do, and the result most of the occasion is good. On the song Infinite Emptiness of a Heavy Heart, there is lots of delay in Friedrich's vocals on this one. The echo in this one is so experimental to the point where you can't even really tell what she's saying. But when it comes to the sound design, this is probably the most uninteresting and the most unimaginative song out of the entire album. Also, being the longest track of the album, being a bit less than 7 minutes long, it's actually one of the songs that feels like it progresses the least. And this one in particular did not need to be that long. And the album ends with the track Nice, which is actually the noisiest and most abstract track. It's nothing that crazy, but at least it's not an underwhelming song. It's a nice way to end the album. The whole feel of this album works. Kind of. For the most part. Creating images out of sounds and music, it's easy. Every piece of music can do this, and every listener who appreciates music like this can easily create his own images in his head. But to make an entire album out of this particular idea, it's not an easy task. What we have here is one of the most well-produced and most well-textured albums of 2019 when it comes to underground music, which is what you would expect from DAIS Records. Other than that, the album starts strong, and as it progresses, it kind of loses touch with even the concept itself. For what it is, it's a highly recommended album for me, certainly one of the most unique things you can find currently, and especially recommended for those who were a big fan of Smelly's last album, because you're going to find a lot of elements to your liking in this one as well. I'm gonna give this album a 7- out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.